Welcome, Star Wars fans. Here we talk about all things Star Wars with rumors, facts, news, and random shenanigans. Get ready and strap into your Millennium Falcon. This is the Force Choke Podcast.
Hello, the Council would like to welcome everybody to episode 58 of the Force Choke Podcast with myself, Lewis.
I'm Tim.
And I'm Micah.
All right, we're going to jump right into it. Right now we got a new trailer for episode 9 we think is coming during Monday Night Football, October 21st. After that, are we going to be able to buy tickets after halftime? It's been the MO for episode 7 and episode 8. Micah, you can talk to us a little bit more about that. You were our go-to guy to buy the tickets last year, right?
No.
No?
No, that was for in-game. No, that was for in-game.
Who bought the tickets last time?
No, it was 2 years ago. We all did our own because that's when I was in Belfast.
We did it for Force Awakens.
No, we didn't.
Yes, we did.
We didn't even have this podcast yet.
No, It was for Rogue One, wasn't it?
No.
No?
We did it for Force Awakens.
No, it was. We didn't have this podcast running.
It was not running by then?
No.
Yes.
No, because we did just after Rogue One.
Oh, God. Water bet.
We did Rogue One?
We
did Rogue One. I know we did.
We went to Rogue One together, but I didn't buy no one tickets. Get your shit.
So,
Tim.
You're going to have to ask
Tim already. God damn it.
Tim, what did those pills do to you? So.
No, he said it on live TV.
What do y'all think? Last year, when did the tickets get released to be able to purchase?
You took 2 years ago?
Or 2 years ago.
For Last Jedi?
For Last Jedi, yeah.
Well, it's always been... following the sequel movies, Episode 7, Episode 8, they've been released during a Monday Night Football game.
Right.
So I think for Force Awakens... Actually, I saw a reminder, I think it was from today. It was like 2 years ago today, the 19th or the 18th. And then Last Jedi was early. It was like the second Monday. Mm-hmm. It was like the 9th or something, or 8th. And
I understand, Micah, you've taken off Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday just to make sure that you get us those tickets, huh?
Don't you worry about it. I got it.
You got this.
I got this shit. Worry about your own self, man.
Wait a minute, I gave you money.
That money was well spent.
Oh, God. So, Tim, what do you think? Are we going to get a new trailer for Monday Night Football? Or is it going to be just another trailer? Or one of the same trailers?
It'll be a new trailer.
It'll be a new trailer?
Yeah, it's got to be the final trailer.
The final official trailer, and then that's it?
That's it, yeah. That'll be the last thing we get before the movie comes out.
Which is actually interesting because aside from the teaser that we had, and then the next one that we had was D23, which is, don't get me wrong, it was another trailer, but the first half was like, again, kind of like this culmination. Like it was from episodes 1 through 6. Before it talked about, or even 7 and 8, but everything that's happened before first. So it wasn't like a bona fide.
First, everybody thinks.
So it wasn't like a bona fide actual like additional teaser or theatrical trailer.
Yeah.
So that's hopefully we see like all new stuff.
Yeah. All right. TK Rick Sanchez says, I hope they go up Monday night. I wanted to check in with you guys. Love your page. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, man.
We love you, man.
He says, hoping for a new one because I need reference shots for a trooper so I can build it. Oh, so it sounds like he's a trooper builder. Yeah, that's awesome. I think and we'll talk a little bit more about, some of the toys that have given us, it looks like new troopers, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the podcast. But some of the troopers look actually kind of cool, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But yeah, I'm super hyped. Micah, you were texting us, was it yesterday? Day before yesterday?
Every day.
Was it?
Are you ready? Sorry.
I'm ready for 155 minutes of glory.
I know, that's the general consensus right now.
Yeah.
I know Nate's got to us. Hi, Nate.
Yes.
I know Nate told us that, and I know there's been like whispers on Twitter. Like there's information going out to some of the, some of the theaters in preparation for it. Mm-hmm. And and I think that's where some of these pages are starting to kind of release that info. Like, here's a potential release date for it. So
yeah, absolutely.
So 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours, yeah. Which is
fine, 2 hours and 35 minutes. Whatever.
Yeah, it's, the last 5 minutes will be for after the credits scenes.
Here we go. Yeah, sure. Why not?
It's gonna happen.
What else are they doing?
It's gonna happen. Who knows if they'll do it or not? I don't think they will, but I can still hope.
I don't think they will, but I'm going to argue it to death.
Yes, I will argue to death about it. But I mean,
they might, because you got to show the the balance of the Force happening according to what Freddie Prince Jr. is talking about.
Oh,
which we'll get to in a minute.
Yes, we'll get to that in a minute. Well, I was going to ask you guys, is Monday Night Football the right place to do it? Does it feel right?
There's prime time, millions of people watching.
And Disney owns ABC. So, I guess...
And it's not on cable, it's like basic.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it adds to the hype factor?
I don't know. I'm asking you guys, what do y'all think? In your opinion, does it feel right to do it on Monday? And the only reason I say that was because I forgot the announcer's name. Something Tirico?
Tirico Collins?
Yeah, there you go. I know.
Are you ready for some football?
I don't remember if it was for The Last Jedi or for The Force Awakens.
It was Force Awakens.
He was kind of like...
I know what you're about to say.
He was kind of like, all right, we have a Star Wars trailer here, roll it, kind of thing.
Wait, they did that last time Monday Night Football?
Yeah.
They were kind of like half-assed.
Yeah, like
it was a Force Awakens. I remember that because I was watching it, and they're like, because I think even some of the football commentators, like when the game was starting, and like real briefly going into the third quarter, they're like, doesn't it? Why are they keep on going? They're like kind of being hypercritical of it. It's like, shut the hell up, Troy Aikman. I mean, I know it wasn't Troy Aikman at the time.
Well, that's how I feel about when Troy Aikman announces. Because recently, Fox they now have WWE or WWE. Is like they're airing on Fox now, so they're promoting the WWE on Fox.
Yeah,
and like Troy Aikman has that demeanor when he's announcing that.
He's like,
let's hear it. What do we have here today? Star Wars. Yeah. Space Force is going to come up.
They're holding themselves back from saying like, oh God. You know what I mean? So that's why I was saying, what do you guys think?
I think it even said something to the effect of like, what football fan watches Star Wars? I was like, bitch.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. I just remember this cavalier.
It's peak time of entertainment at the time, and people are watching football for entertainment. So entertainment is supposed to go together.
All entertainment avenues.
Especially that being the first movie coming back, with Disney owning it. Mm-hmm. Maybe they did that to make sure that there was enough hype and enough people knew about it. Mm-hmm. So, because it's one thing to be like, oh man, we crashed the site. That's almost good for publicity that like it's that big, and maybe they just from that they decided to continue with it, almost as a tradition. And so to answer your question, is it the right place? I don't know if it's the right place. I would definitely like it to be done in the morning, so like I get no sleep, but I know I get tickets before any of the rest of those fools.
Yeah.
Yes, I take care of myself first.
Maybe
and my people, my kin.
Maybe they could have done it like on. Not Good Morning America. Yeah, Good Morning America, right? ABC. Good Morning America.
No, there's too many people up at the time.
Yeah, that's true. Well, our buddy Nate says, are we taking bets on surprise cameos for the new trailer on Monday Night Football? Bets? Cameos? I don't know.
I'll do a bet, Tim.
What cameo does he have in mind?
Slap bet.
Sweet. Catch you later. TK Rich Sanchez says, keep up the awesome work, guys. I'll try to watch more later if I can. So, you have a good one. We'll be on. But Tim, you were talking about right place, right time. Freddie Prince Jr.
It's almost like, I don't know. I mean, now that the movie's coming closer, people are speaking louder about Star Wars. So Freddie Prince Jr. had to come out, had an interview on somebody's.
For a second, I thought y'all were talking about
somebody's
him
podcast.
Being a cameo. I was like, what?
Where he shared his thoughts on on the fans, the toxic, or as we would say, the toxic fans. But for him, it's just some of the fans.
In
general, being crap.
Do you know the name of that one, Lewis? What the podcast was? To give him some credit.
Let me see.
So we can critique him.
It is.
No, for a second I thought y'all, when you brought up Freddie Prince Jr., I thought like we were still talking about cameos. I was like, what? What the hell are you talking about?
And he comes out as Kanan on there.
He comes out as what?
Kanan Jarrus.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I think it's Kanan Runner.
I think it's all things comedy.
All things comedy. Okay.
Yeah. So
we're setting that back up, or?
I think
they did have.
Are you starting that back up? Or?
I'm off of Instagram Live right now, so I can play Freddie Prince Jr.'s clip.
Oh, I see.
And then we can comment on it. So, what do you think, Tim? If you can do a, because this rant goes on for a little while. I think about 3 or 4 minutes. And the expletives fly.
Yeah.
Maybe you can do a count for us.
Oh.
All right.
I can count. I mean, if you want to.
I mean, maybe just not out loud, but just like,
Well,
yeah.
If we all can try to count.
Okay. All right. Here we go. So Freddie Prince Jr. Let me make sure I got it going.
So even I get hate from Star Wars.
Oh shit! Let me start this over.
Sorry.
Look, dog, you're just mad. Maybe I dummy. Come on, man.
Sorry, guys. I should have set this up a little bit better. I didn't think I was going to need this. But.
Fault.
Default.
No, your fault.
My fault. Well, that is. It truly is. Okay, here we go.
I did a Star Wars cartoon, so even I get hate from Star Wars fans when I'm like, look, dog, you just mad the franchise isn't aging with you. That ain't how it works. The first one was for fucking kids. The second 3 were for different fucking kids, and this one is for kids. You're just pissed off that Han Solo gave the Millennium Falcon to a girl. That's it. Because Luke Skywalker's Cinderella. Or Sleeping Beauty. Okay? He can talk to things that don't speak English and understands what the fuck he's saying. He gets a fairy godfather instead of a fairy godmother who teaches him how to be the best Jedi in the world in no time flat. And everybody, I know more about the Force than most people because Dave Filoni taught me and George Lucas taught him. And all these video games have hooked people up on what the Force is. Luke's skill doesn't dictate whether he wins or loses. Right. The Emperor doesn't dictate whether he wins or loses. The Force dictates who wins or loses based on balance. And here's the quick version on how to explain it to all these people who fucking think they get to decide. In the first book, if you want to do this time-wise, Palpatine, you would say, and Yoda are the smartest too. Palpatine clearly smarter because Yoda was blind to the power of the dark side and the seduction of Anakin. So let's talk about the seduction of Anakin fucking Skywalker for a second. If the Emperor is the smartest dude in the universe and knows that the Force dictates this, if he kills who he sees as a rival, Anakin, then he knows the Force is just going to fucking correct that because the Emperor knows this. These are George Lucas's words, not mine. So fuck you. Straight up, this is information, not affirmation time. Straight up, man. So the Emperor knows that. So instead of killing Anakin, what does he do? He seduces Anakin to double the strength of the dark side. So then what does the Force do? Balance. It balances us. How? It gives us twins, Luke and Leia. 2 and fucking 2. Balance. And if you look at the movie through just that simple perspective, you will not only know why every single bad guy loses and every single good guy loses, you'll know who's going to win and lose in the next fucking movies. I can tell you, I just don't want to wreck it. people bitch about the dumbest shit like it's archetype characters. This is George Lucas's words. There is no Jack Bauer in Star Wars. That character doesn't exist. It's not Han Solo. Han Solo's a reluctant hero, okay? He's a reluctant hero. That's the archetype. Darth Maul, where everybody wants to win, and he's everyone's favorite because he looks sick and he's great in the video games.
Does look cool.
Oh, you guys, he's Sisyphus. He is born to fail. Learn your Greek mythology like, I don't know, George fucking Lucas did. He's cursed to roll a boulder up the hill only to have it roll to the bottom again every single time for eternity.
Yes.
That is Darth Maul's quest.
Yes.
He's in on the joke, you guys. He knows it. He's just cursed to live that life. Again, not my opinion. George Lucas's. So go fuck yourself if you disagree. You don't get to level up in the Star Wars world. That's a fucking video game. There's no such thing as a gray Jedi. Why would I even say it? I turn towards the light because it's there. There's no gray. There's no that's pretend fan fiction shit, which is cool, but don't try to canonize it because it doesn't work, and I'm never gonna buy it ever. Star Wars is for fucking kids. Sorry, I'm sorry.
I counted 20 times.
19, 20, 21.
Yeah, somewhere in there, right? And that was.
It just seems like such a cop out. Some of it. This is not my theory. This is George Lucas's.
He was giving us the information that George Lucas had given Dave Filoni, and that information that Dave Filoni gave to Freddie Prince Jr. so that he's aware of how this Star Wars universe works. So he said in the video, it's not affirmation, it's information that he's giving us. And he's pissed off at the fans who are trying to make it the way they want to make it, when it's one way, it's a simple way. It's about the balance of the Force.
I don't think it's that simple, though.
But he's giving you the information. It's George Lucas is saying it's that simple.
No. What I'm saying is that just because, okay, how often does a writer write something, a movie has some kind of message, a art painting, you think the artist is, has an intended message, but then it's received way differently from majority of people looking at it. Yes, George Lucas started this, and we acknowledge him as a godfather for bringing it to us. But just because his envision went this direction, especially since Disney coming in, doesn't necessarily make that the case anymore. And there's plenty of examples looking through the movies where that's obviously Freddie Prince Jr.'s take on it, with respect to what he had heard from Filoni, which had heard from Lucas. But it doesn't necessarily make that gospel. It doesn't make it fact. It doesn't make it. It doesn't even necessarily make it to the ranks of the data bank that you used to bring up every other second.
I think it's great that he was that passionate about Star Wars.
I think he's that passionate about getting yelled at by people.
You think so?
I was in a fucking cartoon, I get the hate too from all the fanboys.
He starts off by saying he was in a cartoon. I was like,
right there, he's trying to establish his point of authority. And don't get me wrong, who said, it's like, oh yeah, well let's see what such and such person who actually was in it says.
Yeah.
But he can be a fan or an outside observer, even looking at his work amongst all the other work, and still have a different opinion than the majority of the fans, or even from the creator himself.
He's saying that the story is predictable and it's simple, and there's nothing wrong with it as long as they do it right. But it's, that's what I was getting from what he was saying. It's simple. It's a simple story, and we're making a big deal out of it. It's like you said, it's a children's story, and I know it's like it sounds bad. Okay, this is a children's story, but that's what J.J. Abrams was also told from George Lucas when J.J. was stepping into the Star Wars world. George Lucas told him, remember, it's about the kids. It's about the new generation. So make the movie for them.
And so,
and he did.
What Freddie Prince also said, right, and just for everybody on Instagram right now if you're watching, we're discussing kind of the rant that Freddie Prince Jr. had about Star Wars affirmation versus information. He said, all you fanboys and girls, I guess, too, you're just pissed off because Star Wars isn't growing up.
They're not growing with us, yeah.
I mean, and does that mean...
But do you agree with that?
Rogue One, I felt, was growing with us.
It had that flavor. It had that flavor.
That was more of an adult, mature Star Wars movie.
I get that, but what I'm saying is that I think not looking at which movie was better, but Episode 7 very much to me felt like a Star Wars movie.
Mm-hmm.
Episode 8, yes, I have more criticism for that, but it didn't exactly feel like a Star Wars movie that I had known from the previous 6.
Mm-hmm.
Not including even Han Solo movie. I'm not including Rogue One.
Yeah, you're not.
But like Episode 7, like felt like a Star Wars journey.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't get that same vibe or feel from Episode 8. And it's not to say that just because I have more criticisms of that one doesn't mean it's not growing with me. I just think there's a contention between the fan base. Yes, there is toxic fans, but then there are those fans, whether you started, watching it since the prequels. Mm-hmm. An example for me, the first Star Wars movie I saw in theaters was Phantom Menace because my dad took me when I was like 10 or 11.
Yeah.
Regardless of where you started at, it doesn't mean it's not growing with you. Mm-hmm. I mean, how can you have a lightsaber duel where some guy gets his arm taken off or a head taken off and try to tell me that that's purely for kids? Mm-hmm. Mandalorian, we've already seen what that trailer looks like. How are you going to tell me that's just for kids? Mm-hmm. Maybe that was the genesis of it. Yeah. Maybe that was the beginning, and maybe that's also in part why J.J. Abrams, had George Lucas was the executive producer, I guess, on set, and was like, sorry, we're going in this direction. Well, I don't like that. You're not in charge anymore, buddy. I am. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and maybe that's why he felt disheartened from it. Mm-hmm. But the story is growing. Mm-hmm. And to say anything otherwise is to have a very narrow view without taking anything else in.
Well, and I wonder also, that's a good perspective, Micah. You know what I mean? Because he did kind of make a flat, like all these people are just pissed off because they think Star Wars isn't growing with them. You know what I mean? It's you can still stay a kid at heart. You know what I mean? And enjoy these movies. You know what I mean? But I wonder I don't know how much insight he has. I mean, he was on the Rebels cartoon, right? And I don't know if he's going to be in any future projects.
And would we say that Rebels was made for kids?
Yeah.
I think that we can agree on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I totally agree with that. And then, so who knows if, with his insight, are we going to, and we've talked about it on this podcast before, are we going to see an R-rated version of a Star Wars film? You know what I mean? And I don't know if we will or not. You know what I mean? Because this rant is pretty fresh. You know what I mean? So I'm assuming that Disney's not gonna move in that direction anytime soon. But we'll see with what the Mandalorian brings us. You know what I mean? Now we're getting some talk about future projects, and which we'll talk about a little bit later today as well. What that means for the Star Wars universe and fans and things of that nature. But Tim, did you like his rant?
Mm-hmm. I did.
Tell me why.
I did like his rant, not just because I agreed with most of it. Because he was just telling it like it is. He was telling the people what they're not reading. I don't think people are going out and finding this information that he was telling these people through his words. Like, people are just watching the movies to enjoy the entertainment and not understanding what the motive was behind it, or whose motive it was behind it with George Lucas, and having it be having each series of movies be for a new generation. Mm-hmm. Because you had the ones, the prequels, right, was for his own generation. The originals was for its own generation. Now we got the sequels for its own generation. I liked what he had to say to get that information out there to these people.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Micah? I know you've commented on what he said.
Yeah.
But I'm asking specifically, did you like his, I guess you just want to say a rant?
I think kind of like what you said, I can appreciate the passion he has behind it. Mm-hmm. Misplaced, I think, is, okay. Misplaced, I think the rant is. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say that it is predictable, but in some sense it is. I mean, it's all about supposed to be like insurmountable odds against the quote-unquote good guys, and at the end, they pull it off. Victory. Yeah. Peace among the galaxy. Everything's all hunky-dory. And let's see if J.J. Abrams decides not to take that direction, especially with everything that we've heard. But getting back to specifically what he said, I can appreciate where he's coming from. Again, misguided or misplaced or otherwise, but I don't necessarily agree with a lot of the things that he said. But I can appreciate it. Despite him criticizing other people for differing from his opinion, I can appreciate that he at the very least has an opinion about it, and that he's willing to be this vocal or this passionate about what we're talking about. Kind of like what you said, we don't know what he knows from behind the scenes, but I imagine they're so tight-lipped about everything. Yeah, he probably only knows about Rebels. Yeah, and if he knows anything else, it's probably because they were on set as a passing thing. But does he have any true insight as to what happened during the making of Episode 7, during the making of Episode 8, or in this case, Episode 9? I doubt it.
See, but I don't see it as an opinion. I see it as these are factual statements that George Lucas has made himself. I've read George Lucas's words on this before. Freddie Prince Jr. came out and made his statement on this information about what his directors have said. Like, they have said that. I've read it. I've read these in articles. And it's quotes that George Lucas is going to, like I said, J.J. Abrams, and telling him word for word, like exactly what Freddie Prince is trying to tell us. Like, this is the story. This is what it is.
What was the last movie that George Lucas made for us? Came out in 2008, right?
Yeah, The Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, it came out 2007, 2008, whenever it was, over a decade ago. His advice has been taken in since they brought it back, but
they're not doing it.
His creation, his direction, they're not following that anymore. They might use it as guidance, but they're kind of doing what they want to, because this is now Disney's show. This is now, Disney owns Lucasfilm. So, like I said, I can respect, him creating it. I can respect the vision he had. But that doesn't necessarily make it truth anymore, because again, he doesn't have any override to what's going forward.
He's saying it's still truth because Dave Filoni is in on it. Dave Filoni is going by that same principle that George Lucas had put out for the movies for Star Wars.
And again, he has a boss.
So if
his boss has a boss, it still has
Dave
to answer
Filoni
to Disney.
is running with that same principle, then the other directors must be running with that same principle.
That's not necessarily accurate.
It's not accurate, but it's a statement. It's what I'm trying. It's.
Well, then why make a statement? Why make a fact-based statement that's not accurate? That doesn't make any sense.
I'm doing my take on it after I've made the statement. After I've made that factual statement, that's my take on it.
So I'm curious, and that was good interaction between you guys. But what I'm curious.
Good job, Tim.
No, for real, it was good stuff. That's why I let it go. I mean, that was good. Let me ask.
Sorry to cut you off, Liz, but
I know, right? Let me ask you guys. Nowhere did in this and right, it was about 3 minutes and some odd seconds. That clip that we just played. Now, nowhere did Freddie Prince Jr. say, "Look, I've been on a Star Wars cartoon, and I'm a fan." Do you think he's a fan of Star Wars, or do you think that this whole Star Wars thing, and he says, "Hey, I get hate mail or hate, tweets or whatever." He said, "I get the hate too from Star Wars fans." Do you think that this rant has something to do with him maybe souring on, maybe he took this job and he's like, "Oh shoot, I'm going to get to do Star Wars." And now he's like, "Hey, screw you guys." You know what I mean? Y'all suck. Do you think he's a fan? Do y'all think he's a fan?
I think he's a fan now. I think because he did the show and he discovered how great the story is, and he's probably branched. I don't know how, but I have a feeling he's probably branched out, heard some more stories about Star Wars because he wanted to get to play his character better.
Okay.
Yeah, as a professional, and he became a fan of Star Wars. I think that's how that happened. He didn't say he was a fan in the podcast or whatever,
And it was just 3 minutes.
Yeah, I haven't heard his whole bit.
Yeah.
But maybe he did say he was a fan of it as well. But I feel like he has become a fan, and because he's also worked on with the show, he knows about Star Wars with director like Dave Filoni. He also has an unclouded mind about Star Wars as a fan. so he's not as toxic as these other guys.
Do you think maybe?
No.
You know what I
just don't want to hear the truth.
You know what I'm getting from you, Tim?
Oh, that's so
is that maybe he's a fan of Star Wars. Maybe he's not a fan of the fans of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, not of. He said. What did he say? What did he say? Most of the. I have to hear it again, because there's something he said, but he's not saying everybody's like that.
Yeah.
Like he says it in there.
Yeah. So certain fans.
Yeah.
He's not a fan of certain fans. Something.
I mean, I don't think anyone's a fan of a toxic fan of him.
Yeah.
But also as well, I think he's a fan now because he's maybe like he wasn't before. He got into the project.
It was a job.
He became invested with the project as a job, and then now.
Because what was Rebels, like 5-6 seasons?
5 seasons.
4?
No, I think it was 5.
I think it was 5
seasons.
5 or
I think it was 4.
No,
between 4 to 6
watch your phone, Tim.
Between 4 to 6 seasons.
You got it.
it's like 5 seasons.
I thought it was 5. I watched all of them.
If you have your phone, you can just.
I know. I do have my phone.
Hey.
But I'm not going to check because I don't want to be proven wrong or right. So anyway, the way he was talking didn't really sound like he was a fan though. Mm-hmm. And I like to err on the side of caution that hopefully he is a fan. He's not coming off as some self-righteous asshole trying to say that I'm an authority figure on this because I played one part in a small show that was designed for kids. Mm-hmm. That I don't want to say how many Star Wars fans watched it, but I can tell you the people who are. I can tell you the people that would be more critical of the cinematic Star Wars. I would imagine a good portion of those folk did not watch the animated series, or probably any of them.
5 seasons.
Okay, so we were both pretty close. You said 6 and I said 4.
I said 5. You said 6.
Oh, well then you're right. You want a cookie?
Good job, Tim.
You want to come to the dark side?
Give me the cookie, damn it.
But you know what I mean? Like, so I think just as much as he wants to try to tout off this thing of like he's an authority subject because he heard from someone who created it, mm-hmm. I think also he's trying to interject his own belief on it.
Yeah. You know,
because all he knows was his show, which was created for children essentially, but he also has to take the own criticism he's dishing out. If he is a fan, mm-hmm. and he says this is all for children, then is he a child too? Can he be a child at heart, or is he just allowed to spew shit because he's an authority figure on it?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean,
like I said, I appreciate maybe where he's coming from. Mm-hmm. But I think he is wrong, at least in the context of where the story is today and especially going forward.
Yeah.
You cannot sit there and watch the trailer of The Mandalorian and tell me that was for kids in mind. And that is now canon, or will be canon.
Yeah.
That will be something going...
It's going to be filling in gaps after Return of the Jedi.
I agree with
exactly. And even more so, I think going forward, we're going to see more... Especially since we're having a hiatus for the movies, mm-hmm. There's gonna if the Mandalorian has success, which I think we can all agree at the very least now mm-hmm. It will, especially a soft green light for a second season. Then we're already talking about doing one for Cassian Andor and potentially mm-hmm. other ones. We're going to start seeing more content come out on Disney Plus for these shows rather than we will movies.
Yeah,
which will attract even more fans. And again, just is a Mandalorian for kids? Seeing a stormtrooper's helmet and or head on a spike and just piled on the ground, mm-hmm. That's for children. He needs to calm the hell down, because he said if you don't like what he said, then yourself.
Yeah.
So he can't sit there and play both sides of this. True. That's all I'm saying.
True. You know, and Micah, along the lines of is Star Wars for kids? I want to we're going to shift a little bit. We're going to skip down to number 6 because I think it's relating a little bit to what we're talking about.
It's for everybody. That's what I'm trying to say. Sorry.
It's all inclusive, right? Star Wars animated series Resistance is back. Season 2. But does anybody care?
They cared enough for it to come back.
They cared enough for it to come back, despite in the opening day calling for the season 2 coming back. They also canceled it.
Yeah, they're trying something different with the second.
Did you know
season.
that?
What?
The day that they said season 2 is going to be coming out,
later
that day they said, "Oh, by the way, I hope you enjoy season 2 because that's all you're going to get."
Yeah.
And I think
they should have said that all together. Like, we're putting this out, and this will be.
I think it should just
instead of just
float away into the ether.
Out.
Well, I'll tell you.
Season 2 for what? Resistance. For what? Resistance. What are they talking about?
For anybody who is following Resistance,
it would just look bad on them if they couldn't finish a story.
It looks bad on them for having to come out and say that we're canceling. I'd rather than
finish a story. I wouldn't want to buy a book, like half of a book, and then a series, and then where's the rest?
Do you really think this series will be completed and finished?
They're gonna have to close it. They have good writers.
I'm not saying that they did not have. I'm not saying that it won't make sense, but it's definitely not the story they probably intended. You're not gonna sit there.
Yeah, no, you're right.
You're not gonna sit there and dump a bunch of money, especially into the animation stuff,
story they
for 2 seasons.
But they do have to close the book on it. They have to close it. We need closure.
I don't think they have to close it.
There has to be closure on their work.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel resolved from the events of ending of Rebels?
I didn't finish Rebels.
We've watched.
We watched
the episodes. The final episodes.
Yeah, I know we did, but I've watched the first 2.5.
I didn't watch it. Oh yeah, we did.
Yeah, I watched the last part of the season. The end.
Another pill or whatever.
I watched the first 2.5 seasons, and then I watched the last part of the last season.
But that's what I'm telling you. We all watched for this to at the very least talk about. At the very least to have that knowledge for us as Star Wars fans. With watching the last couple episodes of essentially forever of Rebels,
it blew my mind.
Did you feel like you had a closure?
It fucking blew my mind.
Do you feel like you had that was a completion of the story?
I couldn't say that I felt it.
Thrawn and Ezra just takes off into the ether.
Because I didn't see the rest of I didn't see the rest of the show.
You've seen the episode. We've seen it together.
I need the meat in the middle.
He hasn't had the meat.
But
yes,
he just got the bone.
I got the closure for this.
What I'm telling you is watching the ending. Yeah, sure, the meat in the middle will make you feel better, but it's still at a logical closure point for that show, knowing nothing else will come forward
Rebels.
From what we know for Rebels. Do you feel like that was a proper ending point? Thrawn and Ezra just take off.
I feel like
Ahsoka goes somewhere we don't know.
Since Tim can't answer that,
the answer is no, bitch.
The answer for you would have been no.
I'll tell you what.
The answer for Lewis is
I've seen all of Rebels,
and
I've seen all of Resistance. And I've seen all of the Clone Wars. I've seen all of them.
We're not talking about all those. We're talking about Rebels right now.
So, this is just for, hey, I just want to keep up with, what's going on in these series, so we can talk about it a little bit. Mm-hmm. Rebels, I felt closure from that story, but they left openings for other stories.
Mm-hmm. See, that's what I was excited for when I saw that last episode.
So it doesn't mean that...
Well, now you have
I was excited.
Now he has an opinion.
Well, I wanted to say this before he started talking, but since he got to it in the conversation, I'm stopping it right here.
You tell us, Tim.
I was excited for what I saw at the season finale of Rebels. Mm-hmm. That it opened my mind, and it opened the whole universe, the Star Wars, to even more, more stories. There's more potential to have. To build on just more chapters for the universe. Well, sorry I stopped you.
No. Yeah, no, that's good, Tim. That's exactly what I was saying.
It's not good.
Dude, it was... Man, if you haven't watched it, anybody listening, anybody watching and hasn't watched the last season, the episode of Rebels, just go and watch it. To blow your mind.
Fine. Go watch it. Comment back so we can obviously talk about this. So regardless of where you stand, obviously you'll find company either with them or myself.
Why didn't you find closure?
What I'm telling you I didn't find closure is because that means they have to do another story. And sure, that gives me the benefit of them having another story. But they have to have another story, so we to figure out what happened to Ezra, for we to figure out what happened with Thrawn, for us to figure out what happened with Ahsoka. That's not a closure.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, like if you're saying, here's a closure, he flies away into the black hole. What happens next? I don't know. That's not closure.
But the thing is that the reason I can find closure from it is because the story with all these characters together is done.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not, because
when
we
other
saw
characters go off,
there's comments that people from Rebels will actually be in this movie, Episode 9.
I haven't heard that.
I posted it, I think like 2 days ago.
I've heard that they'll be on the Mandalorian.
Oh, the Mandalorian. There you go.
Yeah, I've heard they'll be on the Mandalorian.
But then that story's not finished.
The story is done. The story's done. But even though, let's say they make cameos or get a story of their own, doesn't mean that the Rebels story is not complete. You know what I mean?
No.
I know you. I get you.
Because after Return of the Jedi, we felt, okay, story's over. Story's done. But now we have more stories, right? And now after the Rise of Skywalker, they may have something where we're like, okay, what if it's something like after the end of Rebels? But the Skywalker saga will be complete.
But that's not the same.
How?
There was a logical closure point for Episode 6. Yes, is it possible that they can continue the story further on? Fine. Mm-hmm. But the whole point, the conflict that was about the original was about, Vader being this evil presence, Palpatine being this evil presence, the Empire is going to destroy the rebellion, and the closure is that Luke figured out who his father was, essentially got his father back, to Anakin from Vader. Mm-hmm. Palpatine died, the Death Star blew up, the remnants of the Empire are pretty much extinguished, and the rebellion has lived. The rebellion survived, which later on we know that they make, I guess, another republic. You don't get that because the huge conflict that you have through Rebels is Thrawn's presence. The whole idea of bringing back Ahsoka. She was in, I think, Season 2. Mm-hmm. We see her in Season 2, but then she just disappears. And then, I guess she's dead because at the end of Season 2, it looks like Vader's about to, or the explosion at the Sith Temple, right? Mm-hmm. But then you see her again, she just floats away. Some major conflicts that you see in Rebels are not resolved.
Let me ask you then, Micah.
Because when when Thrawn and Ezra on the same ship go through the portal, are we just assuming that they're dead then?
No, I don't.
If we're not assuming that they're dead, then that conflict is alive, and there's no closure to that because we don't know what happened next.
And I'm gonna let me ask you this then, because I can foresee that every story that they put out is going to conclude similar to that. Because it creates more stories. Moving forward, if movies, cartoons, comic books, or whatever leave openings like that for you, there will never be any closure. Because that continues the story. You see what I'm saying?
Okay, how about this? If Ezra somehow or another was successful in destroying Thrawn's ship, the conflict is over.
Thrawn died. We saw him dead.
The conflict is over. Thrawn's dead. That evil that they have been facing is done. Ezra lives. Mm-hmm. That would have been a closure point.
I don't think
that conflict had not been closed,
there won't be.
What conflict was there at the end of Episode 6 that had not been finished?
And I think
Can you answer that?
I partially can because Lucas had.
The people are waiting.
Lucas had a story after that already in his mind. He didn't know if he was going to make it or not, but he had already thoughts of where the story was going to go after Episode 6.
Was that public?
He made that public, yeah.
How long after Episode 6?
That I'm not too sure. I'd have to go into the databank.
So what I'm telling you is after going to the theater, seeing Episode 6 and walking away, to your recollection, that was the story.
Okay, I understand that, but that was in the 80s, right? Fast forward.
That doesn't matter.
Fast forward to 2019. The way they're doing the stories now, you're gonna have to find a closure when these stories, quote unquote, come to an end. Otherwise, you'll never find closure in these stories.
I don't think we're gonna see eye to eye in this.
No.
You still haven't answered my question. What conflict was not resolved at the end of 6?
Well, I mean, Luke's inner conflict.
What inner conflict? He had peace.
You think so? I don't think so.
Maybe we watched a different film.
I don't think he did.
He had training. He took on his father turned, and he's getting that sense of peace because he's sitting there at the campfire, everyone's celebrating, and it looks like he's down, but then you see the Force Ghost kind of reassuring that he had did the right thing, that everything happened the way it was supposed to. That not only is Vader dead, but Anakin Skywalker is back, and not only is Anakin Skywalker did he become Anakin Skywalker again.
I'm going to go back.
He became one with the Force.
I'm going to have
there's a Force Ghost.
Luke
what conflict was there? There was none.
Luke understands how the Force works, and I think he knows that there has to be a balance to the Force, right? The Force is what makes everything run. That for the balance to happen, there's going to be another dark force. There's going to be another dark side. There's going to be
prevalence did you get of that? The end of episode 6.
What
idea did you get of that at the end of episode 6?
Because Vader's no longer there and Palpatine's no longer there. There needs to be a balance. There has to be something there. So Luke understands the Force. He knows that there's going to be something.
And where was the notion of balance?
It could even be himself.
Place? You're taking ideas. You're taking ideas that you learned after the fact.
He doesn't. Yeah,
and applying it to a movie that happened forever ago.
Yeah, and this is great that I've learned that because now it tells us something different.
No. It doesn't.
Yes, it does.
No, it does not.
Well, it tells me something different. It tells me
that you're full of crap.
That Luke knows that he's not guiding himself. It's the Force that guides him. And if the Force wanted to, then he could change him to be an evil person, to change him to be a bad person. He probably still has that conflict. Mm-hmm. Like, I might be the next one.
But actually, real quickly, I disagree with that only because I know I kind of mentioned it with you, Lewis, when you initially showed me that thing. I disagree with Freddie Prince Jr.'s assertion that the Force is this
balance
thing where it can, like you just essentially said, flip a switch. You were good, now we want you bad. I disagree with that wholeheartedly. Mm-hmm. But besides that, the point I'm trying to drive home, and then I guess we're not going to see the eye, and that's
disagree
fine.
With George Lucas.
We can agree to disagree. George Lucas is not in the...
I know.
He's not running the show anymore. But hold on, let me
Dave Filoni.
But hold on, let me go back. That he doesn't matter.
He's following the same principle.
He's following. That's another conversation.
Okay, let me finish.
But what I'm trying to say is that you're taking this outside knowledge and applying it to something when it happened. I can ask Lewis, not an offense to you, but you did see it in the theaters.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
So what I'm telling you is like when you saw episode 6 and you watched the end of it, did you really get an idea that there is an open conflict? Did you not feel resolved? Did you not get your closure? And thirdly, where initially have we as Star Wars fans heard about balance? It didn't come from the original. Not in the point that you're talking about. We get that idea from watching episodes 1 through 3. We get that idea from seeing episodes 7 and 8. We get that idea from all the other lore that happened. The whole notion of balance, the prophecy was never mentioned until the prequels. So when you're watching episode 6 coming out of the theaters, you know that there's going to be 3 more movies, but 3 more movies that predate what you had just seen chronologically. Mm-hmm. You have no notion that there is another evil force, out there, just waiting for its moment to act. You get the idea. Luke and the rebellion fought the Empire. He brought his dad back, and he gets the closure of looking at him as a Force ghost that he went to the Force. There's no existential threat anymore, or otherwise.
I'm gonna preface this with saying that I totally get what you're saying. I totally understand. I totally understand, right, what you're saying.
Okay.
I don't want you to think that I don't get it. Okay, I get it. Yes, I get it. However,
I sense a lurking butt in the background.
And you might. I don't know if you understand where I or Tim are coming from, but when I saw episode 6 in theaters. What was that, 1985-ish? I was like 11 years old.
Okay.
Being that young, when I did see it in the theaters,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, you get it. I did. I was like, oh, wow, that's cool. You know what I mean? Luke killed Vader and, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think I was old enough to take into consideration.
That was your takeaway, that he killed Vader?
Mm-hmm. Well, no, not that he killed Vader, but that Vader was dead, right? The Emperor's dead.
Fine.
I'm sorry,
No, that's fine. I just want to make sure.
But, so trying to think back, 30 30 some odd years ago, that's pretty tough. You know what I mean? If I were to watch it now, I think I would have a different feeling about it.
Well, of course, but also, but you're influenced by everything else.
Yeah, they've changed. I don't want to say they've changed, but they've added to the lore.
Yeah, no, I agree with that wholeheartedly. But that's what that's the only thing that I'm trying to bring into respect is that, okay, fine, you may not remember exactly 30 years ago how you felt about this particular film, but the notion of a balance had not yet been mentioned. Mm-hmm. Sure, maybe George Lucas had thought it.
Yeah.
Maybe he released it in some kind of doctrine later on, but it was not on screen.
Yeah.
It was not relevant enough for the people, even for the following that had it at the time. The whole notion of balance, to my understanding, I'm sure there are expanded universe novels and stories that maybe touched on it.
No, there was literally the day after. There was already a threat in Legends.
Okay, but then
that's totally off the table now. You know what I mean?
Well, sure, but I'm saying, you say the day after, but what I'm saying is that after watching the movie, the idea is that, because of course, like, you can create something, whether it be in the past, sideways, somewhere else in the galaxy, but relevant to this story, after watching the movie, not knowing about any idea of balance with this, overall presence or the Force, over there, you don't get that idea. You just feel that closure.
I'm curious, Micah. And then we can wrap this up. This was really good too. No, I think it was.
Yeah.
Because we have different thought processes on this. But are you okay with series, whether it's The Mandalorian coming up, whether it's Rebels, whether it's the Clone Wars series that we're going to be getting in February? Finishing that story. Mm-hmm. Are you yourself going to be okay if Star Wars stories begin to end the way Rebels ended? For you, there was no closure.
I think the next movie is going to end like that.
For you, there was no closure there. But I have a feeling that this is going to be the
final.
I think that's going to be the pattern moving forward. Are you okay with not having closure after series are quote unquote finished?
I mean, obviously I will continue to watch it as a Star Wars fan. Mm-hmm. I think I would have a problem with it only because there's a difference between creating story after the fact and making it work with that lineage, if you will, with that the depth of the background going forward, having that foundation. But if you don't, I don't feel like Rebels was a closure point. Star Wars, Clone Wars ended not how they intended. They had to speed everything up. So you're not getting, in essence, the true story. I think the same was also for the Rebels. I mean, I've seen other shows that they didn't intend. Like an example, there's a show real quickly. It's called The Following that was on Fox. Mm-hmm. It followed an FBI agent. His initial serial killer was inspired by Edgar Allan Poe or whatever. Anyway,
hey, Dominic Peace.
Dominic,
it's gonna be on pretty soon. I'll get with you, Dominic. This is Lewis. I've been the one messaging you, and we'll get back to your point, Micah. He'll be on, I think, in two podcasts from now, right? But we'll get back with you on the date and time
2 or 3
to make sure that you're still good with that date and time. But thanks for stopping in, Dominic. Appreciate that.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Star of the Mandalorian there.
But I mean, just anyway, not to say that they couldn't have a closure, but it wasn't the one intended. Mm-hmm. But if you continue that forward with these movies, especially like the ending you had for Rebels, I think that's problematic. I'm saying that not just as a Star Wars fan, because obviously the topic would be Star Wars, but I think just simply as a person, trying to appreciate a story. Are you really going to finish a story that I might be asking the wrong person, but I just feel like people read a story, so you have a beginning, you have the conflict, the middle, you have the climax, and then you have the ending. That doesn't mean that you can't have additional stories. Mm-hmm. But the notion is that you always feel like you're never getting the full thing. There's no ending in sight. You're always being dragged along. You're getting these half truths. It just seems like a piss poor job of story and trying to further the objective of, hey, this is the closure.
I'm gonna ask you,
because then we might get a closure for episode 9, like as y'all are suspecting. That you're right now. Disney, Lucasfilm needs to bring people back. Are they really gonna? They're gonna feel taken advantage of if we're telling you this is, we did things that we would have never done to bring everyone back to have to feel better about Star Wars, and then still feel like we're being taken advantage of by being dragged around. Oh, just kidding. This isn't the end because we're gonna have a movie in like 5 years. You know what I mean?
I think you were right on. Hit the nail right on the head. You're asking the wrong person there, because. Right now,
money making should not influence how the story ends.
Well,
and that's what we see, and that's what y'all are talking about.
I'm gonna preface this again with this is outside of Star Wars, and we do talk about stuff other than Star Wars. I think Detective Comics, which is the original Batman comic, I think is an issue over 1,000 now. They've been stringing people along since the 40s.
But that's like chronicalizing it though.
Batman should have died a long time ago.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay, but we know of a story.
I think they found a way to not make this end.
Okay, but what I'm saying is that we have an obvious story that was put forth for 4 through 6. We know there's a beginning to that for 1 through 3, and they continued forward with that. But what I'm saying is, if there's a difference between saying they're not going to finish up episode 9, and then there's a difference between saying, oh, there's going to be another Bond film. I'm not expecting Bond to die. I'm not expecting something else to happen. The whole idea is that this is like another chronicle of James Bond. This is another chronicle.
Why would you expect him not to die?
Because the story wasn't intended for that. But what I'm saying is that these stories obviously have a beginning, a middle, and there's supposed to be an end.
What do you think, Tim?
I think
you can't sit there and say this is the end of Skywalker and then not be the end.
A whole podcast on closure, where we take every series and it's like, okay, how did this close? And we put the closure points on each one. And then the next trilogy, closure on these ones. And after we see this next one, okay, what was our closure on this?
That's actually really good, Tim.
I think he's trying to stab at me for my past relationships.
I mean, the world.
Damn it! Why didn't you call me back?
I was waiting.
The world's gonna keep on going, dude. Just like in real life, everybody has their own story, right? Your family, Lewis, is gonna have their own story. Once you're gone, Albert's gonna have his own story. Then the next, and then the next. So. Y'all's the lines. I mean, it's gonna keep going for you guys. I mean, but that character, I think it comes down to it's gonna be closure for now, and we're not calling it closure, but it is, and it's just an arc to the story. You can say it. Oh, Luke's story. It could have ended right there, like that. That's it.
It could have ended on a new.
You had to understand, like,
but you had.
You have all of these years in front of them. You can easily say, there's another story here, and now it's going to reopen this whole, that world again.
And I see what you're saying, Tim. But what I'm saying is for episode 6 for Luke, you felt like you got the closure. And again, they're trying to say that this is the end of the movies of the Skywalker lineage. You can't tell us that this is the end, knowing that they're already doing other Star Wars projects, knowing that they're going to keep on going with this because it is a very successful franchise. But you can't sit there and say this is the end of Skywalker and it not be the end.
It's not the end of Star Wars.
Well, of course not. Yeah. And we know that because we know that they're working on projects with Rian Johnson's trilogy. We know the guys from Game of Thrones have their own. But you can't sit there and say this is the end of Skywalker and it not be the end. We know they're going to continue forth making, money and stories that we enjoy by us giving them money to continue forth with Star Wars. But saying that this is supposed to be the end of Skywalker and it's not.
Well, what do you want for the end of episode 9?
That means everything would have to die. Everyone would have to die. Everything would have to die.
No.
For real closure.
Yeah.
Absolute closure.
No, I disagree with
everybody's,
that. The conflicts that they have brought forth have to be finalized to the best that they can. If that means Kylo
that's where
Ren,
we would mark down, like, okay, whose conflict was it resolved? Conflict resolved.
Well, that's what I'm asking for, a conflict that was present in episode 6 that wasn't closed, and I haven't gotten an answer yet. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, so it was
you can't say the end of... Well, exactly. And he even said he got closure from episode 6.
Yeah, but I'm saying like the back part of it, the principle of it that people are not seeing, there's still an opening.
No, that's not...
what we're seeing on screen is closure, but
I don't know why you're talking about everyone else when I'm the one making the interjection about trying to get closure from this. But what I'm telling you is the story can continue on.
That's why I said it's closure.
But there's not a logical...
for now.
There's not a closure point to it. You cannot sit there and say that this is the end of Skywalker and not be the end. You cannot sit there and have a huge conflict with Thrawn and Rebels and just take off with Ezra and not know what the hell happened. Because now you have to make another story, given the closure point. And whenever they do have an ending to Ezra and Thrawn, that won't be the end of the that won't be the end of the story, but that will be the closure for that conflict. I mean, yes, I get Star Wars will continue forth, but you have to have some kind of closed door. That's over. Now to the next thing. You didn't get that with Rebels, and I feel like that y'all might very well be right for episode 9, but if you don't get that, I think you're going to be more divisive with the fans because you sat there and told everyone this is the end.
Well,
but by the way,
technically in episode,
go.
You hoes,
you hoser,
you hoser. No, technically
was that fit? I don't know.
I would say at episode 6 where you're calling for closure. What happened after that camp? They all went their separate ways, right? Then we got the Mandalorian happening, and then we got Rey years later.
I think I understand what you're saying. Let me try to reiterate what you're saying, Micah, is that...
we just didn't get it on screen, but off screen...
I think what Micah's saying is that it's okay that, like, Luke didn't die, right? Luke didn't die in episode 6, but his conflict was with the Emperor, the dark side, Vader, having to destroy his father, right? In order to, for the light side of the Force to win, right? Ben Kenobi and Yoda were, pretty much Luke is our only hope to do this.
That boy is our last hope.
Yeah, or Leia, one of the two, right? So what Micah is saying is that Luke accomplished that, right? Just like in he had a task to complete. He completed that task. It's over. That task is over. He's destroyed the dark side as we know it from the films. It's okay that he has a story after that, but what was set before him, he's done that. He's fulfilled his task to completion. And Micah's saying, okay, that's good. It's completed. He can have another story, but this is done. That's closure for him. And I get that. You know what I mean? So I think we're kind of muddling between both statements, both thought processes. You know what I mean? And I think both of them are good. I think having closure. But the problem with what Micah is saying, I think, is that these characters may never meet again. Some of them, right? Ezra may never meet up with Ahsoka again. Ahsoka may never meet up with Thrawn again, or wherever Thrawn and Ezra went, who's to say that they went to the same place, right? We did see them going towards a place together, but what if they didn't end up at the same place? You know what I mean? Who knows? We don't know. You know what I mean? And I think that's what Micah's saying is that story, that conflict was not complete because now you're like, well, what the hell? We don't even know what happened. And I think that's what you're trying to get across, right? Yeah.
More or less. Yeah.
So, and I think for me, and that's why I said that I think you asked the wrong question to the wrong person. For me, that's exciting. I like that. That's just me personally.
But what if they never bring Ezra back, they never bring Thrawn back, they never bring Ahsoka back?
I haven't thought of it since. I think it's cool to know that they could have a story.
So you're not invested in these stories then?
Oh,
you like them, you enjoy them, you'll maybe rewatch them, you'll maybe purchase them.
He was invested enough to watch all of this stuff.
But if you haven't thought about it since, then you're not invested in it. Then you don't care.
I do care. I cared enough to watch all of them.
you're caring enough to watch all of them twice. Sure, that's fine because you can enjoy that story. But to sit there and say that you haven't thought about it again,
I haven't,
not knowing if anything will ever come about to resolve that, whether it takes place in a live action movie or even another series.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that means you're not invested in it. You don't give a shit about it.
I do. And I think where you're missing the
outside of the context of the story.
Yeah.
They have.
I think the part that you're missing is that, for me, I won't get re-energized or think about it again until they're like, okay, we're going to have a series or we're going to have a comic that resolves where they went and what happened to them. Then I'll probably rewatch Rebels again and then get invested into this story that they're bringing to me now. Why would I think about that? I'm thinking right now about The Mandalorian, and I'm thinking about Episode 9, and I'm thinking about the Cassian Andor stuff. Why would I think about...
So then you have trust issues, that you compartmentalize everything, hoping that it'll eventually come back.
It might.
But if it doesn't, you're like, I just shut myself off to it.
Well, why wouldn't you? What if they don't bring it back? Why would I?
But that's what I'm saying is that I don't feel like it's... I don't feel like it's beneficial to the people who are making the story, much less the people who it's intended to watch, or the audience, any audience, period, for it, is to sit there and have the caveat is that this story won't be finished. We don't know if it ever will be, but you do that in the middle of a conflict with no resolve in mind.
I understand that.
Problematic. If you can't, like now, an example real quickly. How about this? Fine, Episode 9. Episode 9 ends, and it's left similar like the last one. You know, the Resistance is almost dead again, and Kylo Ren tracks him down, and they just narrowly escape. But we don't know if Kylo Ren will ever be redeemed. We don't know if Rey will ever whatever. Palpatine is still in the background somewhere. Like, if they don't resolve those problems, you're okay with that?
If that's the story they bring us, it would be difficult to say, man, okay, well, that's how it ended. Because, you want to see what happens next, right? But there's so much content, right? There's so much content, I think.
For Star Wars or for this story?
No, for Star Wars itself, right? To focus on, if you're going to wait for that story coming up, and I think maybe you're invested more into the theatrical, where, like, myself, I like watching the cartoons.
I was thinking the theatrical, too.
That's disappointing.
I like to watch the theatricals. I like to watch the cartoons. I like to watch... some of the even YouTube stuff that comes up, you know what I mean? And I like to read some of the comics. I even bought a Kylo Ren comic from...
Comics Plus.
Yeah, Comics Plus, you know what I mean? And so and books too. There's books that fill in some of these stories that you're talking about. You know what I mean? There are books and comics out there that will fill some of these things in for you that are not in the theatrical releases.
And that's okay as a Star Wars fan, but
you know what I mean?
You're telling us that it's okay that you don't get a closure point for something that may never resurface.
Well, what you're saying
that's a problem for me.
And I think it is because I don't think
they don't have to do it with me in mind, but I think it's silly to have a story if you have an open conflict and have no intention of telling us the ending. Then why tell us it in the beginning?
Are you okay with them completing a story in a novelization or a comic book?
In this case, yes, because we were introduced to the story through a theatrical release.
Would you read it?
I would probably have to, yeah.
Yeah, to fill it in for you.
But what I'm saying is it's one thing if it started off as a novel and ended as a movie. That's I don't like that you're crossing mediums for that, but okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
But when you open it up as a movie and you have the expectation of not just knowing who Rey is, but Daisy Ridley's portrayal of Rey, John Boyega's portrayal of Finn. Like the notion we had if Meryl Streep was going to fill in for Carrie Fisher, that would be a shitstorm because Leia wasn't just Leia. Carrie Fisher was Leia.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so if you cross a medium like that, especially starting it in this particular light and expecting people to fall to this one, you're going to lose people. You're going to piss them off. And again, I don't feel like that is even appropriate. not just in the sense of making money, but even appropriate in the sense of storytelling.
I don't know. What do you think, Tim? It can be very controversial. You know what I mean? Because you're spreading stories over several media, not just 2, maybe even 4 or 5 to tell a story. And you might not get the completion or the middle in theatrical releases. Most of Thrawn's story has been in books and in...
it's all been in books until Rebels.
Well, I think Rebels actually kicked it off. His only canon started with Rebels.
No. But that's what I'm saying is everything that you knew of Thrawn was from these books, and then him being introduced into Rebels, like, it kind of rewrites what had happened in Legends. So how are you gonna? Why would you cross another medium to finalize that story, especially with the idea that you left him in a conflict that you did not resolve, and you gave no clear ending in sight, or even the notion of it might go this way. Quick example, because I think maybe it's time for another topic. Yeah. But what I mean by that is The Sopranos. They ended with a diner scene. I don't know if you saw the story.
I've never seen it.
Okay, well, they go in the diner, and it looks like maybe things are about to happen, maybe things are not about to happen. But that's pretty much the finality of that show. It's like, now, if you leave it as an open thing like that, it's kind of like it allows the creator to allow your imagination with everything that you know from that story to fill in. But it's not stringing me along like, okay, I got to wait 20 years from then have the movie to give me closure on that. Yeah. Star Wars will continue. Star Wars will continue with different stories on different mediums. But to string along someone to maybe even never finish it on this particular story, I think is piss poor at best.
I agree to a certain degree, because now I'm like thinking about
as long as you see my...
Well, how you're talking about crossing mediums because you're trying to get closure, and it's not as... For me, it's like... I agree with this. It's not as satisfying, because I remember... I'm a big fan of Final Fantasy, probably bigger than Star Wars. And so I've...
Get him out of here.
And I've played... I've played each and every one of them, and I've beaten and I've learned all their stories and characters. Well, the latest one, which is Final Fantasy 15... They go through 3 different mediums, right? They start off with the animation, this like anime style. It's on 5 different episodes. You get 5 episodes, and it's character development, getting to know these characters, right? And that's how it begins, the intro of who they are. And then they cross over and they give us, they gave us a movie. So we have a movie for Final Fantasy 15 done by. The voice was, some of the cast from Game of Thrones were doing the voices for these characters of Final Fantasy 15. And, that movie, you would say, had some closure, but then it continued on to the game. And you can see why it continued on to the game, because you're worried about this one character that in the movie. He now has the game, and then I play his story, finish the game, and, I was satisfied with it. I was happy with what I got. But to have to go through all of that,
the whole
I was like, you should just put it all in one.
In the game.
Micah, I want it all in one theatrical movie. Yeah. I wanted it all in the freaking game. Or if you're going to give it to me on episodes,
and actually,
call it something else, because I'm so used to playing it on the freaking game.
And we've talked about this prior, right? And I think Micah brought up the point, when is it too much, right? When is it too much? Because... let's say all Star Wars was the 3 theatrical releases. Then that's all you have to go to for your information. You know what I mean? But now, you got, like I said, you got comic books, you got YouTube videos.
Some of these are canon.
Yeah.
You have to go to that
to understand the whole story, right? And but just to wrap this topic up is that closure for everybody is something different, I think. You know what I mean? But
all started with Resistance. Resistance closing it out, season 2.
Damn you, Freddie Prince. But that was fun.
I feel like that's an hour I'll never get back. And now it'll be immortalized on the internet.
I know, right? So
Perfect.
let me ask you guys.
Personal hell.
Paul Poprowski. Hello, thanks for joining us. We're gonna shift into something maybe a little bit more lighthearted, right?
No, I'm so pissed.
All right, so you might be pissed about this because what was it? Last Friday, a couple Fridays ago, we had 2 Fridays ago we had Triple Force Friday. That is where Star Wars puts out all its toys, its I guess shirts, gears, all kinds of stuff. Triple Force Friday, was it a Triple Force flop? Because I've seen Frozen 2 just draped all across Targets. You know, we work at local grocery store, and they have pallets of Frozen stuff and
of course,
one Star Wars toy.
We sell food. I mean,
yeah.
Oh, Frozen.
Yes, Frozen 2, right? They're getting multiple shippers, multiple things of merchandise. They don't even have enough shelf room for Frozen 2, and you see Star Wars stuff, and it's like a couple of things. So it feels like it's an afterthought almost. They call it a Triple Force Friday, but I guess all this stuff is you got to get it on the internet now. Can't really go to your local stores because most of that stuff is either gone,
cutting into profit.
Yeah. So, do you think that they're focusing more on the Frozen 2 and maybe other entities, and they're kind of giving Star Wars a backseat?
Well, isn't Frozen coming out sooner though?
I think it's
November,
coming out.
right?
Is it in November?
I thought because I remember we talked about that like a year ago.
November, December.
Okay, this is the proposed date. It's like, man, they're not gonna shift stuff around because their own entities will be competing with one another.
You're right.
But I think Frozen's coming out sooner, so that might have part of it.
I think so wait, Frozen 2 is a big deal for large retailers probably to sell. Mm-hmm. Like you said with Target, Walmart, and stuff. But what about the small privately owned shops or just like comic shops or toy shops? Mm-hmm. Those you'll see more of Star Wars than Frozen 2. Mm-hmm. I think so. That's more where I think their merch is going to those clients.
Yeah.
Than the
people
who are coming in to shop for furniture or something.
Have you ever been to a Force Friday before, Tim?
So I would say yes when I went to Order 66.
No, I mean on the day.
I think it was a Friday.
It was a Friday?
Yeah, has that always been a name?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
It was either a Friday or Saturday. I don't remember. I have to look it up when I went to Order 66.
I went to...
Because I remember them saying the Force Friday stuff's in the back.
Uh-huh.
And they had all the stuff, the large stuff.
So I went to episode 1, Force Friday, episode 2, Force Friday, and episode 3, Force Friday. And that happens at midnight. At midnight, store opens, people run in, and there's like pallets and pallets of Star Wars merchandise. Mm-hmm. I mean, all over the place, whether it was at Toys R Us, Target, all these retailers, right? Right, and you can attest. I've showed you some of the stuff that I have, and that's barely any of it.
As a Star Wars fan, it's frightening knowing what he has.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And so I went to these events, and from everything that I've seen on the internet, I didn't go this year, but everything that I've seen on the internet, it was pathetic. Pathetic. Like, you're talking about 1 or 2 strips of toys. Done. And that's it. Instead of pallets laid out for people. I went at midnight and had a basket.
10% of what they used to do on pallets.
I'm telling you, from what I saw at our store and what I saw at Target, it's maybe about 8% of what I would have normally seen Hasbro put out, or Kenner put out before. And it might be that some of the figures that they're putting out are between $20 and like $40 each. And I think that's kind of, I mean, they look nice, but like, am I gonna spend $20?
No, you'll wait 2 years until you can buy for 99 cents.
That's right. You know me.
Like, hey man, look at this. It was originally $100. I got it for $2.
$2, baby. You know me, I'm all for a good deal. So let me ask you, Tim. You mentioned that you went to Order 66. What was it? What's that all about? You had vacation recently.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
I went to Order 66. And
where's it at first?
This was located in Dallas, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Where?
In Dallas.
I don't recognize that place.
So, yeah, so I was there, and I just started following them on Instagram, and I go in, and I didn't know it was their grand opening, that they had a grand opening there until like after I was leaving, because they didn't have any banners or anything. They didn't have anything on the store, but you walk in, it's like, well, they had a couple posters, but like on the left, as soon as you walk in, a bunch of Star Wars merchandise, pallets like what you're talking about, all over the place, right? And they had like different, if you're collected, all the series were there, like different series of your collections are there on the left side when you walk in. And then further down, like that guy who came up to me and said, like Force Friday stuff was in the back. If you look in the back, there was a bunch of like the larger items, the big time items were in the back, right? And then in the back left corner, right after all the series toys, was a table, kind of like this one here, with stacks books of Thrawn, right? Like just Thrawn all over. Well, not the whole table, but it's kind of like on the side, some on the front here, stacked in a weird way. And I was interested. I was like, well, if it, I thought about buying the book because I had considered it before when it came out. Yeah, that Thrawn book by Timothy Zahn. And I turned to my friend. I said, you know what? I'd probably buy it if it was signed. Yeah. So I passed on it. I passed on the book, and I kept going. And to look at the other stuff, and they had like a room on the side. It was an open room where they had where you can tabletop games where you can play X-Wing. There's Star Wars Legion or whatever that stuff is. They had tables of that, like 4 or 5 tables. And so I ended up getting like stuff like the clearance stuff, like the discounted. And I went after that, and I got a couple things for myself. And as I'm leaving,
you're getting it.
As I'm leaving, like I hear the guy say, to another customer that they relocated. Like they just opened up that day. It was either Friday or Saturday that they relocated. They just opened up. It was their grand opening. And I turned to my friends like, hey, did you hear that? Like, it was their first time opening here. That's cool. We came on the first day. So anyway, we're leaving. And the next day, I check my Instagram, open it up, and I'm looking at what's going on. And I see Order 66 pop up. And I see their caption, had a great time yesterday. Timothy Zahn here doing book signings at 12 p.m. I was like, dude, we were there like an hour before he came. We were there. Timothy Zahn came to do book signings for his book. And irony. And I barely put it all together. I was like, oh man, that's why they had all those books out. That's why there was a crowd. When I walked in, there was a crowd of like all these people working on their first day. Again, I don't know it was their first day, but I was like, why are all these people at work? Like, how do they get paid to do all, like, how do they make money for all these people to be here? Well, they had the table with the books, and they had, like, it was a big crowd there. Timothy wasn't there. But they were just chit-chatting. Yeah. They were just chit-chatting, having a good time. So that made sense.
He psyched himself out there. You said when the book came out, you thought about buying it.
Then
you put a condition on it. Well, if the book was signed, I'd buy it. But if you didn't do that yourself, you probably would have went to go buy the book if you decided to do, a sensible thing. Yeah. And not keep on putting conditions on it. You probably would have went to go buy the book. You'd be like, oh, if we hang around in an hour, he'll be here to sign.
Yeah,
and you would be like,
that would have happened. Like, if I bought the book, it's like, hey, man, like, you just want to wait an hour. Timothy Zahn's going to be here. Dude, I would have been fucking stoked, excited to be experienced.
And they would have told you that if you went to buy the book, but you put a condition on it, and you added another condition, and you missed out.
Wow.
Yeah, that sucks. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But let that be known for the future.
This isn't the first time this has happened to you, though, right, Tim?
This is not the first time.
Oh my god.
He's not kidding, dude. I'm not kidding. It was even worse the other one.
Was it for Final Fantasy? Because
No, it was for.
I don't want to hear that story.
No, it was for Muhammad Ali.
What?
Yeah.
So I went to the Dallas again.
Yeah.
Right. I was in Dallas again. This was like 2 years before now.
Why don't
right?
you just marry
It was like 2 years
Jesus.
ago. It was a Dallas Fan Expo. Where you can meet like famous people, take pictures with them, get signings. Stan Lee was there. I took a picture with him. Anyway, there was this. I had a budget. I had a certain amount of money I wanted to spend there. Well, I walk. There was one
Cheap
thing.
ass.
There was a couple. After spending a couple of days there, I narrowed it down to a few items that I wanted to buy.
You're like, that's
yeah. I
still
didn't
there,
want to
that's still
impulse
there.
buy when I got there. I wanted to take a look
You
at
have to.
everything. Right.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
So one of the items I wanted to buy was a poster of Muhammad Ali, the iconic one where you're standing over the guy, right? And then it's got the signature from Muhammad Ali, and it was priced at like, shoot, I already forgot how much it was. It was like
$200.
$200 or
Yeah,
something.
I think it was. I think I remember you
I think
saying
it was
that.
like 200, and I stood there for a long time, and Jamie was with me at the time, and she was looking at other stuff because I was like there just
looking at it.
I was like, should I get it? Should I wait, or like if I don't get it now, I probably won't ever have a chance to do it. And it had the paper like authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
For 200, and I was like, no, this is probably making a bad decision, and I walked away from it after some long time spending. That's probably the longest time I spent looking at an item. So go back to the hotel, and just watching the news at night, right, getting ready to go sleep, and it comes out in the news. Muhammad Ali passed away. This is like died at the hospital, right? That same night, I was looking at that poster and I was like, "Hey, like that." I was looking at that thing. The price is gonna go up. I go back to the venue the next day. The same poster. I didn't have the money for it anymore because the price hiked up to like $600. 2 to 6. I could have bought it the same day.
Yeah. Well,
So
another signed item.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
you only
the
you wanted to buy it only because he had died? Oh, shame on you.
He wanted it before.
I'm just looking at the camera and I just see his face.
Before he died, 'cause I know he was going through some like health issues, but like I was like, I really wanted it, man, and I didn't consider him dying. I was just like, this is a nice piece to have.
Yeah.
Like,
Ugh, Tim. All right, shake it off, Tim. Shake it off. It's gonna be all right.
Dallas.
It's gonna be all right.
See, you gotta sometimes pull the trigger. Like the trade I made at Fantasy Football yesterday.
Oh, that was a good one, man. Good job. All right, so we're going to pull the trigger on an official rumor.
On my face.
Oh yes, Daisy Ridley, who portrays Rey.
Real quick, you misspelled Daisy. I just want to
Did
get
it? Oh, I'm sorry about
you
that.
disrespect her.
I think that was a spell check correction.
Yeah, okay.
So Daisy Ridley, who plays Rey, official rumor, people. Her story is going to go on after episode 9, Disney says.
No closure. Just fucking.
Did Disney just ruin what could have been a monumental moment, Rey's possible death in episode 9?
So closure.
I think so because I brought you this idea.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Son of a bitch.
Well, expound on
You're
that.
crazy, son.
Yeah, I wanted you to talk to us a little bit more about that, Michael, because you're the one that did bring it to the table.
Well, I mean, if you talk to Freddie Prince Jr., apparently it's you wouldn't be ruining anything because it's predictable. Of course you can't.
You know.
Die.
He knows who's going to die.
Duh. Just read your Greek mythology.
I mean, if Luke dies,
Wait, who's gonna die? No, I mean, look, it's kind of like the whole thing that how episode 7 got ruined for me. Look, I actually thought that Kylo Ren was somehow going to be the son of Leia or Han or both of them, whatever. I thought it was possible that Kylo Ren was going to kill him. I thought these things, not knowing it before watching the movie, like 16-hour countdown before the damn movie comes out, and then I have it ruined for me. Mm-hmm. Is it possible that Rey will die in the movie? It's possible. Is it likely? No, it's not that likely. Mm-hmm. Not even. I would even argue it's barely possible. Possible nonetheless, because anything can happen, and we don't know what's going to happen yet, because it has yet to come out. But to sit there and say like, "Oh, it looks like our story's going to continue," it's like, well, fuck me. I don't like. Do I still need to watch episode 9? What happens to Adam Driver's character? I wonder. You know, it's like, don't volunteer that information, especially when it's critical to the story that you're wanting people to follow, that you're trying to rebuild your fan base by pissing everybody off for the previous ones. Stop giving away that information. Like almost the same argument that you had, Lewis, that before having this podcast, you didn't even want to watch additional trailers or read up additional knowledge because you wanted to be to go in there with a clear slate, surprised, fresh as a fan to truly enjoy it. You can't do that now.
No.
But this is like taking it a step further. It's like, why? Don't volunteer that stuff, man. Is she going to die? Probably not, but I don't want to know anything set in stone.
Yeah. What do you think, Tim?
Well, who's putting that out? I mean, it depends on the...
Disney put it out, right?
They put out the possible death of...
No, they put out that...
Hey,
So, no. Disney's the one that kind of divulged, like, oh, you know... Ray, it seemed kind of like nonchalant the way that I got it from Micah was that like, oh hey, Ray's story's going to continue after episode 9.
Yeah, how did I
don't remember.
It was an article, but it was like confirmed by somebody, I think. I can't check because I have my phone right now.
Yeah, no worries. But I don't know. What do you think about that, Tim? Disney saying, you know, Ray's story's going to go on after episode 9. Kind of like, don't worry about it.
They shouldn't have said that. I think they shouldn't have said that.
Then remember, look right here. It says official rumor.
Yeah, it's a rumor. That's what I was asking. Like, who's putting? Like, who made that statement? Like, what journalist came out and said, "Hey, this
I'll
is what."
Have to find it. And yeah,
that's what I heard.
But I mean, it's kind of like. When they ask you a question like that, point blank, if that's the case, you know, it's kind of like, oh, hey, so what happens to your character? Hey, did you know we have a cold front coming in next week? You know, like, don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Morons. I don't know.
Are you okay with stuff like that, Tim?
The last one's, if they do it, it's more like of a move to mind trick you into thinking, well, she's going to live. She's gonna make it, and then you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised in the movie, and it happens. Well, I freaking thought she was gonna have her extended. That she's gonna get more. She's gonna live after this.
So it's you think maybe it's misinformation?
Like a song.
They got the rumor mill spinning, the misinformation.
But I don't think they would do that. They would deceive their fans like that.
You don't?
I think
even when Ewan McGregor came out.
I said, "Oh, D23."
Kathleen Kennedy said, "Oh, we can let the cat out of the bag," or she said something like, "She didn't have. They don't have to lie anymore." And she said, "That's what she said." She said, "So we don't have to lie anymore." And then she asked Ewan McGregor, like, "Ewan, are you gonna reprise your role as Obi-Wan Kenobi?" And that's when he was like, "Yes."
Because interview, that was a surprise, and interviews before that were with him was like, well, you know, they haven't got with me, or
so he had to lie the whole time.
I would like to play that part. It's just it was either a lie or I would like to think he was telling the truth there, but I mean, in a situation like that, I feel like you'd have to lie. Mm-hmm. You absolutely have to.
I mean, and that's the thing is, like, you can't expect them to tell you the truth. And whether it's a lie or not, it's like, I don't think you can take any of that to the bank, whatever they say.
Because he wasn't saying no either.
Yeah.
Well, he's like, well, you know, I'd like to. I'm like, well, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. But I was just wanted to throw that out there, see what y'all think. So our next segment we're going to go to is Star Wars Animated Series Resistance is back. But does anyone care?
Nobody cares.
Not again. No. Our next segment is Journey to the Mandalorian. So I had a conversation with two people Carl Weathers, and I don't know his character's name. And the second one was Gina Carano. I'm not too sure her character's name either. I'll have to do some more investigation on that. But we'll do our little segment here.
Put your phone down, Tim. Shit.
Okay, here we go. All right, so I had an interview with Carl Weathers.
Dylan, you son of a bitch. Carl Weathers.
All right, let's get this going.
What's wrong? CIA got you pushing too many pencils.
They don't have his name listed on the freaking IMDb.
I think he mentions it here, but you have to listen very closely. Okay, here we go. You guys ready?
Spoiler. Hey, we're really quickly.
I'll tell you what, I'm super excited for this. We got Carl Weathers here talking to us about The Mandalorian. Let's take a few of his moments here. Hey, Carl, can you talk to us a little bit about what is it like working with Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni? They're becoming legends here with the Star Wars universe. What's it like working with these guys?
They are, first of all, so much unbelievable energy. They are so good together. Both of them have this wealth of knowledge about the Star Wars universe. They're great filmmakers, and John is just this like, he's like rolling thunder. I mean, he really is. He has so much knowledge going on, but he can walk in and address something like instantaneously that has to do with this. And many other things I might add, because I've heard John talk about the industry on so many levels. It's wonderful to be involved with those guys and to be involved with something like this Mandalorian, this Star Wars part of the universe that is new and fresh and different and exciting and a lot of joy.
So, Carl, can you talk to me about what is it like being part of something of this magnitude, this greatness on Disney's new streaming service, this show called The Mandalorian?
At this point in my career, to be a part of that is just so juicy. It's so good, you know. I couldn't be happier. I really, for my grandsons to see me in this, there is cool. You know, I can't wait until it's out and they can see it.
Yes, Carl. Well, we can't wait to watch it either. But I'm gonna tell you what. Just watching the trailers, this looks like theater quality stuff that y'all put together. Oh my gosh, it looks amazing. Can you talk to us a little bit about The Mandalorian and the quality that went into the product?
For the streaming service to put the investment into the quality and quantity, as this is multiple episodes of a series, you know, and to have kind of unearthed some unique and interesting part of this universe that hasn't been really like put under the spotlight before, you know. The character, the Mandalorian, my character, Grief Karga, and Gina's character, and Giancarlo Esposito's character, and Werner Herzog's character. I mean, it's just this wild kind of band of interesting people that Jon Favreau has put together to be a part of this.
Oh, sorry about that, Carl. I had to readjust the mic there, but I just want to let you know, here at the Force Choke Podcast, we think you have acquired legendary status here in Hollywood. I mean, you've done great movies, the Rocky movies, you have Predator under your belt, you have TV shows under your belt. I mean, can you tell us, now that you're doing The Mandalorian, how does that make you feel being in part of the Star Wars universe?
Well, I don't know about the legend part about me, but being a part of this is pretty phenomenal, you know, because, you know, I've said this many times about different movies. You're in the capsule now, man. If you've been a part of the Star Wars family, they will have you on another planet someday, you know, and you'll live forever. So it's too cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. Now that you're part of the Star Wars universe, can you tell us a story, or, you know, maybe a great moment, or maybe something that you're waiting to see, or anticipating for everybody to see on The Mandalorian?
Oh, wow, there was so many. There was one sequence that we shot in a lava tunnel that was in a boat on a lava tunnel. It sounds ridiculous, but when we were doing it, literally, it felt like the real thing because of this technology that you're in the midst of. There's no pretending, man. It's kind of like it makes you dizzy and it's exciting and things are going by you like you're on a boat going down a river, you know? It's very cool. So I'm excited to see that on screen.
Well, Carl, it seems like if you weren't a big Star Wars fan prior to The Mandalorian, it seems like you are now. Well, let me ask you, and I know you told me that you did see Star Wars in theaters back in the 70s when it first kicked off.
Who would have thunk it, man? The line was around the corner for a movie that was basically just coming out, you know? So here we are all these years later, and I'm a part of it. How cool is that?
Carl, thanks for your time. We appreciate it here at the Force Choke Podcast. Once again, there you had it. Hollywood legend, star of The Mandalorian, Carl Weathers. Awesome. All right, guys. So, Carl Weathers, I forgot what he mentioned what his name was.
Yeah, I just remember. I forgot it.
I remember that, but then I got thrown off when you said Rocky before Predator. I was like, Jiroff, Groff, or
something like that, right? And so he was talking about there's a scene that he wants everybody to see with lava river and stuff like that. So it sounds like they're going all out for the Mandalorian. You know what I mean? It really looks amazing. I'm really excited for this thing, man. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I don't know if they don't.
You'll be back on Vader's planet again with that lava?
Oh,
stuff on.
I didn't even think of that, Tim. Possibly.
Because isn't his character supposed to be like the head of the Bounty Hunter Guild or something like that?
I think so.
So what if they're going looking for old relics of Vader? Because that's supposed to be after his death. Wait, Vader's dead? Let's go take all his shit.
Maybe they're collecting stuff for Kylo Ren.
It's a bit early, I think, for that. But collecting it for somebody.
Snoke.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Snoke.
You think that we'll see Maz Kanata in this thing?
Or even Snoke.
Well, I mean, we're bound to see her. She's like 900 years old.
Mm-hmm. Maybe she steals Luke's hand from somebody. One of the bounty hunters.
Here's a save. There's a hand with it. Did you have a hand?
Because she says that's a story for another time.
When did she get that lightsaber back?
Maybe she steals it from one of these. Maybe she is a bounty hunter. Or she used to be.
She is, yeah.
Right?
Well, not a bounty hunter.
Well, I mean, if you live to 900, I'm sure you can take on a couple different
Maybe she used to be a bounty hunter.
She retired.
Yeah. When she got too old, she started sending people to collect relics for her.
True.
I mean, we see her in episode 8 where she's bouncing around fighting somebody.
She on like a jetpack too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
flying
that's
out.
right.
Gotta go!
Yeah. That's true. All right, well, we got another interview with Gina Carano. So let's go ahead and play that real quick.
Her name is Cara Dune.
Here we are with Gina Carano. Gina, thanks for spending some time with us here. And you're a MMA fighter to begin your career, now moving into movies and acting. Can you tell us a little bit how that lends itself to your new career in acting, from MMA to acting?
Thank you, yeah. It definitely leans into it. I mean, the adrenaline I feel standing across from the actors I did and being directed by the people I was directed by gave me, I would say now, more of a high than standing across someone knowing that they want to take your head off. Except for it was encouraging and it was light and it was just as hard, but it was oh my gosh, the adrenaline I felt was just unlike any other. I actually had a little bit of a panic when I was standing across from Taika Waititi and he's...
Oh no, a panic attack? Ow.
I had a panic attack because the camera had been on everybody else the entire half of the day for like 8 hours and they turn it on me. And then it's the first time I'm being directed by Taika. And I literally was just like, I was so sensitive and so he's such like a superstar in himself. So it's just like, and I had to take a second and then he like worked it out of me and he just kind of like brought me along. And then Jon Favreau came down and so I had Taika and Jon Favreau they were doing kind of like, do this and do that. And they're like shouting out things to get me out of my skin, to get me out of being so nervous. And I came out and it was a high.
Gina, speaking of it being a high, Tell me, how excited or were you excited about being cast in The Mandalorian?
Are you kidding me? I was like, there's been... So Jon Favreau is just, you see all his movies and you just think, gosh, what a wonderful man. He seems so cool and all of his characters. And every scene that he's in, he always steals, I feel. And, he looked at me before my big scene, one of my biggest introductory scenes in The Mandalorian, and he was like, we're going to change your trajectory right now. I think that he's a very honest man, and he's seen the struggle, and he's seen what happens to careers. And he's like, we're going to change your path right now. And he's like, from here on out, you're going to choose jobs that are complimenting, and you're going to choose jobs that challenge you, and you're going to believe in yourself. And, from this scene forward. And I went out and I crushed that scene, and he believed in me, and it helped me believe in myself. I've got a unique voice in it. I think people are really going to receive, I had Dave Filoni and John, they just kept on saying, oh my gosh, people are going to love you. People are going to just love your character.
Wow, that is awesome to get that kind of affirmation. Before we let you go, just a couple more questions. So what is the life of a bounty hunter like in The Mandalorian?
I think the world of bounty hunters is a very lonely place. And violent at times, and you don't know really if you're going to be a good person or a bad person. You're just, trying to go for whatever bounty it is, whether what you're taking, what you're getting is, you have to think of the person or the thing, or the being that you're getting the bounty on. So I think it's a very hard life.
Last question, Gina. So what is the most exciting thing that you're anticipating to see in The Mandalorian, as you watch it, or for your fans? What is the most exciting thing that you have waiting for them?
Oh, the thing I'm most excited about is the surprise.
The surprise?
I know that's not, but by the way, when you watch it, you'll understand the surprise. It's such a wonderful, beautiful surprise that I think could float on its own if it wanted to. But we're all just blessed enough to be there with it.
Well, we'll have to wait to see about that surprise. Gina, thanks for stopping by and talking to the Force Choke podcast, and we can't wait to see your character on The Mandalorian coming in November. All right. So, the surprise.
Boba Fett does make it out of the Starlight Pit.
Nope, sorry guys.
Let's do that filibuster.
Filibuster? What the fuck? We're on the Senate floor again?
Oh, you haven't? I don't know if you've heard.
Oh, from Ryan Patton.
From Patton.
Patton Oswalt.
Patton Oswalt.
Yeah.
He makes it out of the pit, and the X-Men are there.
That's good stuff. But so what do y'all think? We had some great interviews with Carl Weathers, Gina Carano. What do y'all think?
Second time you said Carino, then you said Carano, then you said Carino. I'm like,
I can't
pick
get
one.
it.
Pick one of them. Sorry.
Man, I'm stuck on that surprise. Probably gonna be Boba Fett.
You think so?
Well, I mean,
I was just joking.
What other bigger surprise? Surprise. I guess I have to watch the show to figure out what.
I don't know. I think it's definitely something that people know and they wouldn't have expected to see in this case.
Yeah.
So I think if you were to pick something like that, it would probably be Boba Fett, but I don't know how likely it would be.
Maybe George Lucas comes out in it.
Oh my God, George Lucas!
What could it possibly be? She says...
Jar Jar?
Oh, God! Darth Jar Jar.
Yes, I'm looking for this, and then I found you!
Well, she says it's something that could go on be its own thing. So, she's got your tongue tied, man.
Wasn't there a thing at some point in time they're talking about maybe we'll get to see Rex? Mm-hmm. You still have... God damn it. What's his name? You know who I'm talking about. The one who plays... Django, who plays...
Oh, that is...
Daniel?
No.
No, not Daniel Logan. He's Boba Fett, fool.
Yeah, Morrison?
Yes.
I forgot his first name.
L? Something with an L?
I don't remember.
Anyway, I mean, you still have that actor. So if you aged him up a bit, you could make an argument for Rex popping up.
The Snowbeard. Possibly.
And maybe that could be an introduction, because if Rex is there, then maybe that could be an introduction to Ahsoka live action. Just briefly enough.
Yeah, and I know they've been talking about, and we talked about earlier today, possibly some of the Rebels characters coming out in The Mandalorian.
Yeah, I said that.
I think we said that.
I think I said that.
I think we said that earlier.
I think you didn't say shit. Except for, of course, it's a pleasure point. Of course.
Maybe Ahsoka comes out in this thing. Maybe that's a surprise.
Ooh, that'd be huge.
You see it for 5 seconds, you're like, who is that?
It's Ahsoka, I guess.
I want my closure, Micah.
The Darksaber.
Oh.
No, I think we'll see that in like the second Han Solo movie. If they follow Ray Park. Twice more.
Do you think they're going to do another Han Solo movie?
It will be tied to that. I don't think they'll say Han Solo 2. It's like a double negative.
We need closure. Have to be tied together.
You son of a... Here we go.
Disney has to close it.
Oh my God, Tim.
Even if it's 5 years.
You're killing me, Tim. You're killing me.
I mean, we kind of know what happens to Han Solo, but...
Yeah.
Weren't you the one that's saying that a death is the ultimate closure?
Well...
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Let me ask you guys. So, our journey here to The Mandalorian, we've had some really good interviewees come on our show and talk about The Mandalorian and their experiences. Who's been your favorite so far? Or what insight have you gotten the most out of?
Out of Mandalorian? Which one?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Well, which one?
Well, we've talked...
Which one did we like more? Which one did we get more insight from?
Let's go with insight.
Insight?
Yeah. We had Giancarlo Esposito last time.
I think I got the most.
What
insight
Esposito say?
Huh?
Oh Jesus, Timmy!
I wasn't here for that.
Yeah, because you're off tramping around and not getting
being a tramp.
Timothy Zahn's signature in Dallas.
That jacked up.
I'm gonna make you remember
forever.
He was just kind of going into the backstory of what his character is going to be, and especially in the remnants of the Empire's Fallen. I feel like we've probably gained the most insight from him because he was able to establish more or less what his character is and what that potentially looks like going forward.
Yeah.
But I appreciated Pedro Pascal's the most.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, I know that one has been a couple episodes for us now. But he had, I mean, not just because he's the lead role, but he had this almost kind of like childhood, amazement and joy talking about like that. Because I remember watching, I don't know if it was released at Star Wars Celebration, but it was an interview with him talking about like they wanted him to come to do a Star Wars thing, and he walks in the room with all these like different like kind of like masks or costumes it was either that and the comic strips, whatever the
it was both.
It was both. Yeah, and he was just thinking it was gonna be like some little cameo, kind of like what they did with Episode 7. A lot of these little roles were actually fairly famous actor and actresses. But so he goes in there and he's like, so what do I get to do? I get to be this person? He's like, no, you get to be the lead role of the Mandalorian. He's like, what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that childhood like wonder. You got to hear that, and it didn't sound. It sounded authentic. It didn't sound like he was forcing it.
Very heartfelt.
He was trying to be passionate about a role after the fact. Like it was very much kind of like, I don't know. One day Tim gets to be in a Star Wars film and give somebody closure. But a Star Wars fan would be able to really appreciate that, and I think that's one of the great things that we're seeing going forward with some of these Star Wars stuff. And I mean, in Marvel, not to curtail away from this conversation too much, but that you get to see people who grew up with this stuff, who were actual legitimate fans, who this just how happens to be the profession now, and getting to enact on that.
Yeah. And that's awesome. You know what I mean? It seems like everybody that's being a part of this has been very genuine with their thoughts and feelings about being on it.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to cut anyone else's. I just
Yeah, no. And
His stuck with me. That's all.
Yeah. Well, we got to wrap it up here. We do have one more topic to talk about. I don't know if we have time to. I mean, we can just touch on it briefly if y'all want to, or if y'all want to go ahead and wrap it up.
Or just like 2-3 minutes.
Okay. So I'll let Tim elaborate on it.
I really don't know.
You have all that? Then maybe we'll save that. I thought I was just briefly talking about something.
Yeah, and we can just touch on it.
This seems like a fair amount of info. I don't want to just skate over this. Yeah, let's save it for next time.
Yeah, let's save it for next time?
I don't think that's...
You going to tease it, Tim?
Project
for next time, we're going to talk about Project Luminous from New York Comic Con. Little was known about the project. Let's see here.
We'll just leave it at that.
Okay, I was about to read it.
Project Luminous.
And before I forget the thing I showed, but what?
I'll just say it's tag. So the tag for the project is: the Force is what gives a Jedi his power. It's energy field created by all living things until.
Why did George Lucas say that?
Project Luminous, coming out in 2020. So they are adapting. I think they're adapting to that.
A big change. Lewis called it. Well, that thing that I sent you, I can't look at my phone.
Until
the screen capture that I caught, it was Yoda saying like something about Luminous or.
Oh, okay. Let me look at that.
I'm just wondering because I had never remember seeing that or heard that mentioned before, and so when you had this, I was like, "What is that? One and the same?" No, it wasn't far ago, man. It was like last night.
Why is it in here? Did you send it to all of us?
No.
You sure? Yeah, you did.
It was just here.
No, it's right here.
Oh, okay. There's a screen grab of a
luminous beings we are.
No. Read it again, Tim.
Oh, I read it like him.
This is Yoda, ho.
We are luminous beings. Luminous beings are we? Question. Because it's a period.
Did he actually say that?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I hadn't. Well, anyway.
Yeah. He tells Luke, luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. Mm-hmm. When he's training him.
So is this going to be reflecting on the light side aspect then? It's a whole show about nothing but Force Ghosts.
Possibly. Or stealing the essence of them. Possibly.
Alright. So we'll have
maybe
a new
like
story.
Ghostbusters.
Man, let's cross the stream.
Never
cross the streams.
Never cross the streams. I think we're at the cross the streams. You said that was bad. You said don't do that.
Speaking of being bad, we got to wrap up episode 58 of the Force Choke podcast. Tim, you gonna wrap us up, man?
Okay, we'll wrap it up. This was episode 58 of the Force Choke podcast.
Well done, sir.
Stay tuned for us next time, episode 59.
Peace.